Within each of us lies a wilderness, a vast, nameless land that longs to be healed, a land hidden in the deepest layers of the soul. It is not a place we can see with our eyes, yet it is always with us, whether we are living, breathing, or moving along the current of life. Some wander through this wilderness in dreams. Some, like Dylan, the character in the famous novel The Ferryman, only recognize it after death. The psychologist Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens." This is not merely a fictional story, but Joniwan, the author, wishes to remind us all of the awakening, the effort to heal, and the courage to turn inward. A journey that, perhaps, you too are now walking, or about to begin. Hi, greetings to you all. Welcome back to BION, the channel that shares knowledge for holistic self-development through great books. This week I'd like to share with you a reflection titled, "Darkness does not come to swallow you whole, but to help you find the light," through the novel The Ferryman by Claire Mac. Literally, the ferryman means the boatman. Its Vietnamese translated title, Ng Ide Na Ache. Na, the Soul Guide, might make newcomers believe that this is a book purely steeped in metaphysics. Yet behind that veil of imagination are slices of life, raw and real. Moments tied to our journey of living, losing our way, and finally awakening. This book is not just an enthralling story, but also a mirror of the inner self, leaving behind profound philosophies that guide us to live more meaningfully and fully on the road ahead. Upon release, the novel stirred the hearts of millions of readers worldwide, quickly landing on the New York Times bestseller list and being translated and published in over 33 countries. If you are still standing at a crossroads, lost and unsure of how to move forward after pain, or at times feel numb, trapped in the deadlock of existence, then this book may awaken within you the very guidance you need for your next steps. So, I now invite you to listen and reflect with me on today's sharing. Have you ever looked back on your life and felt like you were simply drifting, a little empty and lost? Within every person lies a wilderness of shadows, a barren, desolate land that we each must face, cross, and ultimately heal. The story begins with a girl named. Growing up in a broken home with divorced parents, she was forced to confront deep loneliness and emotional wounds at just 15. At home, her mother, consumed by her own busy life, never truly tried to understand her, leaving a chasm of silence between them. At school, she was an outcast, enduring relentless bullying and isolation from her peers. One day, overwhelmed by the crushing weight of it all, Dylan boarded a train, hoping to find solace with the father she hadn't seen in years. But her journey was cut short by a horrific tragedy. The train crashed, and in a cruel twist of fate, she became the only passenger who did not survive. Suddenly, Dylan found herself a wandering soul, lost in a liminal realm known as the wilderness, a strange, transitional space where the worlds of the living and the dead intersect. It was here, she was told, that she must wait for a guide, a ferryman who could lead lost souls like her toward a place of rest and rebirth. At first, Dylan clung to the belief that she was merely trapped, that rescue teams would soon arrive, and she would return to her old life. But then he appeared, Tristan, the ferryman whose solemn duty was to guide lost souls. He revealed the devastating truth. Dylan was dead, and if she ever hoped to be reborn, she had to cross the wilderness. In the beginning, Dylan imagined this land as a lush, vibrant plain, perhaps covered in blooming flowers and bathed in a gentle, welcoming light. But after just 2 days of walking alongside Tristan, she discovered the brutal reality was nothing like her hopeful vision. The wilderness was a harsh and desolate expanse. Towering, barren mountains clawed at the sky, surrounded by an endless, suffocating emptiness. The air was thin and bitingly cold, cut by a freezing wind as sharp as a blade. The land itself glowed with an eerie, crimson light, shrouded in a haunting and perilous atmosphere. Worst of all, when night fell, the darkness came alive. Ravenous demons prowled the shadows, hungry to devour wandering souls and drag them down into a bottomless abyss where no sunlight could ever reach. At times, Dylan's fear turned to resentment, and she lashed out at Tristan for bringing her to such a terrifying world. But eventually, a profound realization began to dawn on her. Every path a soul must walk through this realm is shaped by its own fears, its unhealed wounds, and the long, deep shadows of its past. In truth, the strange and menacing wilderness in the story is not a place that only appears after death. It is a powerful metaphor, a message the author wishes to share with us all. That even while we are living and breathing, every one of us carries our own inner wilderness, a spiritual desert that must be confronted, traversed, and healed. Before she ever stepped onto that fateful train, Dylan was already living in a wilderness. Her world was a society paralyzed by coldness and numbness. Her school, with its 3 identical floors and soulless, standardized classrooms, was a suffocating and oppressive place. Each room was a replica of the next, filled with bodhis, moving like machines, repeating hollow words in a desperate, grand performance, all in the futile hope of changing their fate. But in reality, this mechanical existence led nowhere. This wasn't just Dylan's inner wasteland. It was the spiritual desert of an entire generation, a society running on autopilot, forcing people into predefined molds, stripping them of their authenticity until they became blind to the vast emptiness growing within their own souls. Like Dylan, countless others drift unconsciously through their lives, numb and unaware that they are already wandering their own barren inner desert. The author paints this vivid picture of the wilderness, as if to ask each of us a chilling question. Could the spiritual wasteland you construct in your modern life be the very precursor of the realm your soul must face after death? Within that inner wilderness lurk the pressures and invisible fears of our time, the bitterness, the deceit, the arrogance, the violence in our words and actions. It is a land defined by disconnection from ourselves and from others, and fueled by the endless chase after hollow goals, false expectations, and unquenchable desires. Aren't these all the very shadows waiting to consume us? To confront the darkness within our inner wilderness while we are still breathing is not just a way to live more fully and authentically. It may also be the very path that prepares us for ultimate liberation, because the wilderness does not wait for death to appear. It already exists within the mind of every one of us, woven into the frantic, paradoxical rhythm of our age. So the question remains, how do we fight and overcome this wilderness of darkness? And you know what? The universe has given each of us 3 sacred weapons, not to destroy the darkness, but to help us see it end, to keep our own light alive, unextinguished, even as we walk through the deepest shadows. The very first of these weapons is the understanding that everything you see is but a reflection. Here's a new version of the content you sent as Dylan journeyed through the wilderness alongside trees. She couldn't help but notice the peculiar nature of the weather. It shifted abruptly and unnaturally, a phenomenon that defied any logical explanation. Tristan eventually revealed the truth. Everything Dylan witnessed in the wilderness was nothing more than a reflection of her own inner world. When her heart was calm and steady, the weather would become clear and bright. The skies would open up, sunlight would stream down gently, and the air would feel fresh and clean. But the moment anger flared within her, the sky would instantly darken, storms would begin to rage, and thunder would echo across the landscape. The deeper her despair, the blacker and more suffocating the night became. Grasping this profound connection, Dylan started the difficult work of learning to regulate her emotions. She focused on protecting her inner light, anchoring her heart in a state of peace, regardless of the external chaos she faced. As she practiced this inner mastery, The skies above her grew clearer. The treacherous terrain became easier to navigate, and the two of them could more safely find shelter along their path. Yet, this mystical phenomenon isn't confined to a fictional story. It mirrors a deep truth about our own daily lives. Psychology has long described the projection effect, a concept which posits that everything we perceive in the external world is, in fact, a reflection of our own internal state. When you allow yourself to sink into a mire of complaint and resentment, the world around you immediately takes on a gray, oppressive. Standing within that cloud of negativity, you begin to emit waves of discontent, unconsciously attracting people and situations that only serve to reinforce those very feelings. There's an old saying that captures this perfectly. The world is like a mirror. Frown at it, and it will frown back at you. Smile at it, and it will smile back. This isn't because the world itself has suddenly improved, but because the lens through which you are looking has fundamentally changed. Once you are no longer controlled by negative emotions, no longer ruled by fear, anger, or wounds from the past, you cease to react blindly to the world. You start to see that true, lasting peace does not come from trying to manipulate your external environment to fit your desires. Instead, it arises from mastering the mind and emotions within yourself. And it is precisely in that moment of realization that the wilderness stops being a place of lurking shadows and looming threats. It transforms into a space of healing and profound renewal, a realm where you can finally recognize the cracks in your own soul and slowly, patiently learn how to mend them. Ultimately, the journey across the wilderness is not about running away from the darkness or attempting to defeat it through force. It is about finding the courage to turn inward and face the hidden layers buried deep within your own being. The darkness does not exist to swallow you whole. It exists so that you may discover the light you carry inside. Light cannot destroy darkness, but it has the power to render darkness completely powerless. For where there is light, there is no longer any room for ignorance to thrive. When the light within you shines brightly enough, no amount of external darkness can touch you. And when you learn to dwell in that inner sanctuary of peace and awareness, then no matter where you find yourself in this life or beyond, death you will always have a place to return to. And the second vital energy to cross the wasteland of darkness, which the author points out to us, is the profound realization that every soul, illuminated by love and kindness, becomes a guide not only for itself, but for others as well. The soul guide, Tristan, was in reality a lonely and pitiful being. Eadi, no name, no fixed appearance, and certainly no family or friends. Yet, he always dedicated himself wholeheartedly to helping the souls that had just departed the mortal world. However, instead of receiving gratitude, the newly departed often vented all their frustrations and pain on him, treating him like an emotional garbage bin. They even resented him for leading them into the desolate wasteland. No one had ever shown him compassion, nor had anyone ever felt sorrow for the suffering he endured. Only one soul, Diane, looked at him with the gentle eyes of the kindest heart. After learning Tristan's secret, she not only offered a sincere apology, but also reached out to comfort him with a warmth he had never known. This simple act of kindness moved Tristan to his very core. Later, at a deep ravine within the wasteland, Diane was ambushed and surrounded by thousands of vengeful spirits, nearly losing her soul completely to their relentless assault. In that desperate moment, it was Tristan who risked everything, who defied his own nature, rushing into the fray to save her from certain peril. Afterward, Diane asked him, "Why did you risk your life for me? You could have let me struggle on my own, as you always did before. Why put yourself in such danger this time?" He simply replied, with a voice full of a newfound emotion, "I've guided countless souls across this land, but you're the only one who has ever truly felt compassion for me, who offered me sincere kindness. This time, when I brought you to shore, in truth, you were also helping me cross the river. It is like the saying, kindness is never a one-way path. It is an echo. The warmth you give will one day return to you. The bridge you once built for others will one day become the road that someone builds for you. It was this profound, shared sincerity that brought the two lost souls together in the wasteland and allowed them to truly fall in love. After enduring countless trials and tribulations, they finally reached the end of the wasteland. Diane took a step across the line of light, but Tristan was stopped by a radiant veil at the very boundary, unable to follow. There, they parted without any promise, their future uncertain. When Diane entered the new world, she discovered that souls here never faded away. This place was a paradise, where those who arrived lived eternally, never dying again, enjoying abundant blessings they had never experienced while they were alive. Yet, Diane soon came to a heart-wrenching realization. Without Tristine by her side, this heavenly home was nothing but an empty castle, a beautiful but meaningless illusion. The joy of eternity felt hollow without the one who had made her journey possible. She resolved to return to find Tristan, but an old woman who had lived in this paradise for centuries warned her against it, telling her that no one had ever succeeded in going back to the wasteland. Souls that attempted the return journey would all dissolve into dust, their essence scattered by the unforgiving forces of the dark lands. If she went back now, she would be utterly alone, without a guide to protect her, vulnerable to the dark spirits that could devour her soul at any moment. But despite fully understanding the terrible risks, Diane did not hesitate for a second. She firmly nodded, her decision made. It was either never, or it was now. Without any further delay, she crossed the boundary and returned to the treacherous wasteland. In the past, she had fled the wasteland to escape the darkness. Now, she returned to it to pursue the light of her love. Demons craving her soul surrounded her all along the way, their whispers and threats echoing in the shadows. But she was unwavering. She held only one thought in her heart: to find Tristan. Before, when following Tristan, she had been filled with fear and uncertainty. But now, on her own, she could walk firmly, her steps guided by an unshakable purpose. For where there is love, there is no fear. Finally, she found Tristan, a lonely figure in the vast emptiness. Overjoyed and resolute, Diane invited him to return with her, not to the paradise beyond, but back to the human world. At first, Tristan hesitated, afraid of breaking the ancient laws of the wasteland that had bound him for so long. But faced with Diane's fierce determination and unconditional love, he chose to let go of his fear and take her hand, ready to face any consequence for a chance at a life with her. Though the journey back across the wasteland was still full of dangers and malevolent spirits, this time, something had changed. Tristan let Diane lead the way. Once, he had been her guide through the darkness. Now, she became his. For guiding another is also a way of saving oneself. The story ended in fulfillment. The two returned to the human world and lived together forever, their love a testament to their incredible journey. Many readers were deeply moved by the pure, powerful love of Tristan and Diana. Love that transcended life and death, all for the chance to find each other once more. Yet, as readers, we observe that the philosophy the author leaves behind in this story does not stop at romantic love. Behind their tale lies the third Vito Energia, spiritual power that helps us completely break free from the influence of darkness, from negativity, suffering, wounds, and desires, so that we may live a life of true fulfillment and freedom. And then, the third vital energy to cross the wasteland. Here's the final copy for your video script. The next vital force we need to overcome the wasteland of darkness is the ability to see love not merely as companionship, but as an opportunity for awakening. In the story, Tristan was a mysterious character. His appearance changed depending on the soul he encountered, a strategic transformation to make it easier for them to accept him and cross the wasteland. When guiding a fallen soldier, he took on the form of a commanding officer. When walking alongside a lost child, he transformed into the familiar, comforting figure of Santa Claus. Wondrously, however, with Diane, Tristan no longer needed to change his shape. She saw him as he truly was, not an image fabricated by her mind to soothe her fears. To all the others, Tristan's form was just an illusion, a projection woven by their own consciousness to ease the terror of the wasteland. But for DY it was different. Why was that so? Many observers believed it was because DY was Tristan's one true love. But was that love really directed toward someone outside of herself? In truth, it was not. That love was in its purest form, for the self. Therefore, rather than saying DY loved Tristan, it is far more accurate to say that she had finally embarked on the profound journey of loving herself. This is because Tristan was, in fact, the other half of DY's own soul. This isn't a soulmate in the romantic sense, but rather the part of her being that was strong when she was weak, the part that was clear-headed when she was panicked, and the part that was protective when she felt lost. Tristan was the forgotten fragment of her own soul, a piece of her that had become bound by fear within the restrictive rules of the dark wasteland. DY recognized it. She named it. She embraced it, and she brought it back into herself. When the two fragmented parts of her soul were finally united, she no longer needed a guide, because she herself had become her own guide. The Soul Guide is not only a story of passionate love between two beings, it is, above all, a journey inward, a quest to rescue oneself and to unite with the true self. When we are courageous enough to love, to guide, and to reconcile with ourselves, to return to the part of our soul we once abandoned out of fear, we become whole. When we no longer feel divided, when we no longer reject our own inner darkness, then we have truly, finally, come home. Home is not a physical place. It is the state of peace that exists within, the place where we are whole and complete with ourselves. The ending of the story may seem to some like a satire on our bleak material world, where even two souls, finally reunited, cannot find lasting peace in a metaphysical heaven, but must instead return to be human again. But of it. So what if we must once again face suffering, the struggle for survival, and the endless hardships of being human? If the soul is already whole, if the heart already knows how to love itself unconditionally, then this human world can also become our paradise of freedom. It is not because life has suddenly changed, but because you have changed. And when that transformation happens, no matter where you are, no matter what obstacles you face, whether you are walking through darkness or through light, in the metaphysical realm or in the tangible human world, you will no longer be lost. As long as you understand this core truth, you can navigate life's challenges, no matter how difficult, no matter how negative things may seem, and no matter how much darkness surrounds you. You can still remain steadfast on the path of wholeness, the path of loving yourself. And how is this self-love expressed in our daily lives? It is when, in moments of fear, anxiety, or anger, you learn to turn inward, remain calm, and master your emotions instead of letting them master you. It is when, instead of relying on others for validation or direction, you can always trust and respect yourself. It is when, regardless of life's turbulent circumstances, you choose to treat everyone around you with sincerity and kindness. The renowned psychologist Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." People will try every absurd method possible to avoid facing their own soul, but only those who dare to confront it can truly awaken. Instead of running away from your inner shadows, why not choose to become a person with profound inner strength, someone who courageously faces life's inevitable ups and downs, and becomes the hero of their own story, the one who rescues themselves. The author once revealed that the wasteland in this book is, in fact, a depiction of the wasteland of our own soul, and by extension, it is also the wasteland that exists within each of us. The only way to truly save ourselves is to find the courage to cross it. I hope that both you and I can be brave and steadfast until the very end, on this sacred journey of returning home to ourselves. Thank you for listening. If you found this video helpful, please consider sharing it with those who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell to catch the latest videos each week. Once again, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.